This time, CNN tells us, this time Elizabeth Warren was being 100% completely real. Not like that time she lied about her race, or the time she lied about her job history, or the time she lied about her plan to finance universal health care without a middle-class tax hike. No. This time, for sure, no question at all, Elizabeth Warren is telling the whole truth and nothing but, and you'd have to be some kind of misogynist to doubt her. That's what they told us all night on CNN. Now, why did they tell us that? Why lie to us? Simple. The Democratic National Committee is worried about Bernie Sanders. All those attacks on Wall Street offend donors. So Jeff Zucker, a Democratic partisan who has said repeatedly he plans to run for office once he's finished destroying CNN, jumped in. He was happy to help. Zucker unleashed his army of paid robots to stop the Bernie menace before voters could elect him. So that's what you're watching. The media working, as always, as handmaidens to the ruling class. And not just on CNN. The LA Times praised Warren for refusing to shake Sanders' hand. They called her rudeness, quote, a masterclass in handling sexism. Okay. But is any of this true? Is it real? I mean, Sanders is a socialist, obviously, but is he a sexist? Consider this. According to an analysis by Breitbart, Sanders pays his female congressional staffers $3,500 more per year on average than Elizabeth Warren does. And yet, according to CNN, Elizabeth Warren is the real champion of women. Okay. So what's the effect of this debate? Well, Michael Moore isn't much of a filmmaker, for that matter, much of a person, but he knows an awful lot about the Democratic Party. Watch his analysis.
I've known Bernie since the 80s, so there's no way he said anything like the way it's been reported. They will mark this day, January 13th, as the day Donald Trump was reelected.
Ooh, so Trump's a beneficiary, says Michael Moore. And by the way, he may be onto something. Consider that 4 years ago, Democrats rigged the primary for Hillary Clinton. They did that despite the fact Hillary Clinton probably would have won anyway, but they just couldn't resist cheating. Because they did that, because they cheated, millions of Democratic voters emerged from the process embittered and enraged. Some of them stayed home last November. Others voted for Jill Steiner, Gary Johnson. Some moved over to Donald Trump. The net effect of this? Democrats lost. They suffered a shocking upset on Election Day. Could that happen again? Obviously it could. But no one in Washington knows that because no one in Washington ever learns anything. Author and columnist Mark Steyn learns and knows a lot and joins us tonight for an analysis. Why do you think CNN is carrying water for Elizabeth Warren of all people, and will it help Elizabeth Warren?
It won't help Elizabeth Warren, but I agree that CNN are doing this because the DNC, and they and CNN are joined at the hip on this, regard Bernie as a danger. And so everything, the priority for all these forces now is that Bernie should not be the candidate. And Elizabeth Warren, on this show a couple of months ago, Tucker, I said to you that I thought she was doing well, as she was then, because she was talking about policies. She was talking about policies because she couldn't run on biography, because her entire biography is a lie. As you know, you played that clip just the other night of her saying, I'm going to get me a beer. And as you said, no one would actually want to have a beer with the person in there. I'm going to get me, I'm as effete and hoity-toity a foreigner as you can find, and I can do a better, I'm going to get me a beer than Elizabeth Warren. So she's, the fact that she's now, that she pivoted from policy to the lamest of all charges that you can level, these identity group grievance charges, tells me she's tanking, and that at a certain level she's useful to CNN and the DNC in that as she's nosediving into the briny, she can at least take Bernie with her. And Bernie raised $4 million in the 48 hours since this thing started. I don't think it's going to work out for Elizabeth Warren quite the way she thinks it will.
Why wouldn't, though, she keep arguing from policy? You can disagree with her policies. I just disagree with a lot of them. But there's some evidence that that works. Why wouldn't she keep doing that?
Well, absolutely. I think this is the reason the debate was such a bust the other night, and why the people who support Bernie, the base of the Democrat Party wants radical change in this country. So they want candidates actually talking like Bernie. They want people talking about socialist health care and open borders and all the other flim-flam. And in Washington, their leaders are talking about some Ukrainian phone call for the next 6 weeks. And on the ground, on the stump, they're just playing these lamest. I mean, it's not. God bless her. I love Helen Reddy. I am woman, hear me roar. But this is I am strong, I am invincible, I am whining. I don't even get the Elizabeth Warren charge against Bernie. I mean, if I say to some gay guy, I don't think Iran's ready to elect a gay president, it doesn't mean I'm homophobic. It's just an assessment of the state of the race, as it were.
Well, that's exactly right. It's not even a comprehensible allegation. And, but I don't think I'm defending Bernie. I'm not. I'm offended by the unfairness and stupidity of it, I suppose.
Yeah, it's totally stupid, even in Democrat identity politics terms.
Elizabeth Warren's attempt to frame Bernie Sanders as a woman hater is backfiring with the media. She's also feeling the burn on Twitter, where leftist brigades are using the hashtag Refund Warren about where supporters can get their donations back. Even some Democrats are pushing back. Fellow 2020 hopeful Tulsi Gabbard tweeted about Sanders, "He showed me the greatest respect and encouragement, just as he always has." Joining me now is Mercedes Schlepp, Trump 2020 campaign senior advisor, Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA and author of Go Get It, the MAGA Doctrine. I already have my copy. And Scott Bolden, former chair. You're rude. Of the D.C. No, I should say Scott Bolden. I would never do that because I adore you. Former chair of the D.C. Democrat Party. It just was a reflex.
That's a good Democrat. That's a good Democrat.
See, this is acid reflex, Scott. Your book's got more play in these 5 seconds.
That's right.
Scott, this whole thing. Okay, let me tell you, we were talking about this during break, but to me, this has all of the trappings of 2020, where Gingrich and Santorum, I urge them both to form a coalition if they wanted to take on Romney. They had to work together. Instead, they're like ripping each other to shreds during the debate. So Romney comes out smelling like a rose and he goes down in flames. Why wouldn't they both focus on Biden? Why would they go after each other now at this point?
Well, it makes no sense, but they also are running, and they're running against each other, and we're 3 weeks or 4 weeks from the primary or the caucuses. But I don't think it's going to work this time. I saw the debate tonight. The debate, they both came out strong. They maintained their positions, but they said there are bigger, broader issues in this, and we're not going to divide the progressives on this. And the progressives have said, the big organizations have said, we're not going to do that. It was a non-issue in the debate. I think they're going to move on. I don't know why Warren, in her orbit, someone released this, a 2018 conversation, and then wanted to get some run out of it.
I don't buy this. I think she's lying. I'm sorry. I think she's lying. I think it's total. But
he never come off like a sexist either.
He doesn't.
He can't sell that on Bernie
But this
Sanders.
goes back, Mercedes, to the inauthenticity problem with Elizabeth Warren.
That's right.
Donald Trump nailed it when he called her Pocahontas, then moved to Pocahontas. It was Pocahontas. She's a phony.
Yeah.
She claimed she was a Native American. She wasn't. 1/1000th, whatever. It's just no one believes her.
We've got fake news and we've got fake Warren. So there you go. But I think for Elizabeth Warren, it was a desperate move. Look, we know that Bernie Sanders is gaining ground in states like Iowa, New Mexico, California. They play to the same type of voters. So in her mind, she's thinking, yes, Biden is a front runner, but he's a weak front runner. The one I've got to go after is Bernie Sanders and try to take him down so the supporters can come to me. I think that was her strategy. I think it totally backfired. And I think that Sanders came out trying to be the honest broker here.
Yeah, he's like the grandfather figure.
Yeah.
Oh, Elizabeth, I didn't say that. You know that's true. Charlie, I just mentioned it, but Elizabeth Warren has a long history of pushing tall tales. Watch.
I was visibly pregnant. The principal did what principals did in those days. Wished me luck and hired someone else for the job. What do the facts say?
You absolutely have a Native American ancestor in your pedigree.
My daddy ended up as a janitor.
I read that your children went to private school.
No, my children went to public school.
Charlie just...
And her kids did go to private school. Look, it goes to that same point that she's doing everything she possibly can to save a failing presidential campaign right now. But your point is very insightful, Laura, that the only thing that could really help Joe Biden right now is two divided senators that are fighting each other that actually soon might be quarantined in a Senate impeachment trial. They're having this fight at the worst possible time, and all of a sudden, former Vice President Joe Biden's going to benefit tremendously from this. But I think it goes to a broader point that if you actually add the totals with Warren and Bernie together, that is a pretty formidable, candidate looking at the coalition. And the tone of the Democrat Party is much more in their direction. Biden's path is a quarreling socialist base in the Democrat Party.
They're
Scott,
both in the race too, which is a real problem.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren is never going to be president of the United States. I don't make those kinds of proclamations very often, but never going to be president. Okay, she would do well now to drop out and start campaigning for Bernie. That's what she should do, and then maybe he'll throw a bone, make her vice president.
Not even before the first caucus.
Yeah, drop out. You're never going to be winning. You're never going to win.
Man,
people don't. Sorry, no one. I mean, God bless her, but people aren't going to vote for her. She's never going to be president. She should just drop out and endorse Bernie, and then call it a day.
She's polling pretty high. Let me just say this.
Scott,
what amazes me
you're too smart.
She's polling. You can't deny the polling numbers in Iowa.
Yeah, because I knew they were garbage when they said Trump was so far down in 2016. And they're garbage now.
Is this working? Elizabeth Warren is basically leveling an identity politics attack against her chief rival on the left, Bernie Sanders. Is it effective?
No, it's not. And the reason they're doing it is because there's nothing else that they can do, right? What we saw, this was very predictable, right? So about a week or two ago, you started to see this sort of coordinated release of analysis and articles and things like that saying, hey, has anybody noticed that Bernie Sanders might actually be in an incredible position to win this primary? The same sort of pundits on CNN, the New York Times, people like this, who had basically ignored his candidacy for a long time, suddenly realized, wait, this guy's not a joke. He has the most money. He's first or close to first in all the early states. He's got real strength in the Super Tuesday states. Is it possible he might actually win? And there was about a week of that, and we were all feeling like, now they get it. But of course, the thing that was going to come next is, well, what are we going to do about it? And there's not time to out-organize him. There's not time to out-fundraise him. And there's certainly not time to explain to people why his agenda, which is very popular among the voters, is not something they should believe in. So what do you reach for? The last refuge of scoundrels. You lie and call him a sexist. And I have to believe that even the Elizabeth Warren campaign knew that this was going to be tough for people to believe. I mean, Bernie Sanders in 1988, as a surrogate, by the way, for Jesse Jackson, right, in his presidential campaign, in 1988, as a surrogate for, one of the first major party candidates as a black man to run for president, said he thought a woman could be elected president. It's a tough argument to make. But what else are you going to do?
Well, I don't know. You could critique his policies, which are radical, and I think deserve a debate. And one of the things that enrages me is that the rest of us are bereft of that debate. We would be enriched by it. We'd be terrified by it. We might learn something. But that's the whole point of this whole stupid process, is to inform us. And all we're hearing about is sexism, racism. It's like childish.
Yes, it is. But here's the problem. They tried that. So where did things go wrong for the Elizabeth Warren campaign? Easy. They had a good summer, really good summer. I was actually a little bit afraid when they had such a good summer. And then they got into the details of a debate about health care policy, Medicare for all. How are you going to pay for it?
She hadn't thought it through.
She had not thought it through. And she thought that she could sort of pulse a trick, right? We're going to be able to do this without raising taxes. We're going to be able to do this in year 3. And then we'll have a sort of option at the beginning. And she sort of tried to pull a fast one. And they lost that argument decisively.
Yes.
So badly that it tanked their campaign all the way from the heights that I thought that they were going to just ride all the way to the nomination, down to where they are, which is in 3rd or 4th place, and they started bleeding everything to Pete Buttigieg, of all people. I mean, talk about getting humiliated. You're losing to the boy mayor from South Bend. So they tried a policy argument, and the problem is their arguments were bad, and they couldn't win that argument. And so, now they're looking around and thinking, well, Hillary Clinton didn't have good policy arguments either, but she had this. Why don't we try that? And it's just not going to work.
Last question. We're almost out of time, but if this works, and if the establishment led by CNN and Jeffrey Zucker somehow crushed the Bernie campaign on the basis of an identity politics attack, what's that going to do to the Democratic primary electorate? Will they feel well served by that?
I mean, there is a decent chance that is actually an event that could destroy the Democratic Party. But to the contrary, more interesting to think about is, what if it doesn't work? What if you pull this gun and you shoot it and we are fine and we live anyway? And it demonstrates this is not as powerful as you people thought. And from now on, you better believe that we are not going to be afraid of this anymore, because you tried as hard as you could and we still won. Trump sort of demonstrated that in the Republican Party.
I'm not a lefty. I'm not for Sanders. But we'll all benefit if that happens.
Well,
if this identity politics garbage ends here, I mean, I'll go to church and say a prayer. I mean it. Good.
Michael Moore said that he was paralyzed watching Bernie and Liz fight. I think it's pretty great. I'm surprised it's taken this long.
Yeah, I'm surprised how vicious this has gotten, but I will say this. Elizabeth Warren is a pathological liar, and all of her lies are to enact a sense of victimhood about her. She lied about being Native American. She lied about being fired for being pregnant. She lied about her father being a janitor. She lied about her kids going to public school. She has a history of liar. You can say a lot of things about Bernie Sanders. He's crazy. He's a communist. He loves Fidel Castro. But he has been crazy consistently for 30, 40, 50 years. He is not a liar.
That's also the point that Michael Moore made when he was watching the debate, was like, anyone who's ever talked to Bernie knows he didn't say this. Right. Why do people automatically believe Bernie?
Yeah, look, I think, as you said, I think he's consistent for 40 years. He hasn't been a liar or a serial liar like Elizabeth Warren. But I think that what the better point that I'd like to make is that this is the advantage of being an incumbent president, letting them fight, letting them stab each other in the back while the Iowa caucus is around the corner. They're taking the gloves off. This is what happens. This is what the natural progression to the Iowa caucus is going to be. And I think they are going to just keep stabbing each other in the back.
I don't think that was a better point. I mean, it was a different point, but I don't know if it was necessarily a better
one. Yeah, your points all make the podium because there's just 3 of you and everyone gets a participation trophy. So what do you think? As a Democrat, when you watch this, do you think, yeah, Joe Biden, you're winning this?
I'm going to disagree with you because I think you probably said it. Behind closed doors, people are saying a lot of different things about who's electable. And I think that Elizabeth Warren is probably upset that Bernie's not getting called out for some of his hypocrisy.
Liz, a woman's never going to be president.
I think he could say something like,
Sanders.
the Democrats aren't going to elect a woman because
no one cares about your
what
damn
happened to
boobies.
Hillary.
Get out of the race.
But let me ask this. Even if you think he said it, why did it come out now? Why did it come out when
I think she's tired that he's getting away with hypocrisy because he has not been tested.
Hypocrisy.
I would argue.
I think it's because they're going
that someone's getting away with hypocrisy.
Because if you look at Bernie's record, which you're saying he's been forever consistent, for a long time he let a little white lie just carry on that his son was the son of his first and ex-wife instead of a girlfriend, and there's issues. And so I think that Elizabeth Warren,
we can bring family into it?
No,
I
that's
think,
awesome.
you know, the truth is he won't let you even talk about family or
neither
the background.
will Donald Trump or Joe Biden.
What's happening is they're both going after
go,
the
it's really
radical
sad.
left base. That's
I know,
what they're
it's
doing.
very true.